Welcome in, special edition of Outkick the Show, reacting to Super Tuesday. I could have waited till tomorrow and come on and broken this all down. But what a remarkable night of politics we are seeing, and what an incredible comeback from Joe Biden. I don't know that we have ever seen anything like this in the modern history of politics anyway, where the Democratic Party just executed, if you're a Star Wars fan, an Order 66 on Bernie Sanders and his campaign, and they just wiped him out. If you're not familiar with Star Wars, Order 66 is when all the Jedis just got wiped out all at once, and only a few of them survived. Bernie Sanders and his campaign just gave up the ghost tonight. And I'm in awe of the organization that the Democrats brought to bear to make this happen. I think you just got to give them credit. Bernie Sanders was rolling in the wake of Nevada. It looked like he was set up to be the nominee. And then the Democrats, I think to their credit, they didn't want a socialist to represent them either. They believed that he would lead them to a disastrous result in the race against Donald Trump, and they wiped him out. They put together an incredible series of events to basically coronate Joe Biden as their nominee. They persuaded Mayor Pete to drop out. They persuaded Amy Klobuchar to drop out. I think they also persuaded Elizabeth Warren to stay in the race so that Bernie Sanders wouldn't pick up her supporters. In the process, they, after that disastrous debate performance, and that might have been the single most important night of Joe Biden's presidential campaign, when it appeared that everyone might be willing to coalesce around Mike Bloomberg, he got absolutely destroyed in the debate in Nevada. And as a result, nobody was willing to believe that he could go toe-to-toe with Trump. And Joe Biden came back to South Carolina, won that primary by a massive amount, thanks to his support from black voters who stayed true to him. I think if you're a Democrat right now, you have to thank black voters who rejected fundamentally socialism and stood behind a moderate Democrat in Joe Biden. And then they got Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar out. They got them both to endorse alongside of Beto. And I'm not saying that Joe Biden is definitely going to get a majority of the delegates, but I believe this race is effectively over because the fix is in and the Democrats want Joe Biden to be their nominee, just like they wanted Hillary Clinton to be their nominee in 2016. Now, the challenge is going to be these Bernie bros, these socialists, these dudes who looked down to Cuba and admire Fidel Castro. These dudes may well lose their mind in Milwaukee when they find out that Bernie Sanders isn't going to be the nominee and they feel like he gets it stolen from them again. And I think there's a possibility. I think there is a possibility that Milwaukee in 2020 looks somewhat similar. If you're a history nerd like I am, go look at what happened in Chicago in 1968 when there were riots in the streets. I think Democrats are going to have major issues in Wisconsin trying to handle the Bernie bros when they find out that their guy is not going to be the nominee. But I got to give credit to Democrats because I was never, ever, ever on the planet going to even consider voting for Bernie Sanders. And you'd be amazed how many people who aren't even remotely interested in voting in Republicans had come up to me and said, I'm not voting for Bernie Sanders. It's too far left wing for me. And I think a lot of those people will consider Joe Biden. Now, given his age and at times his very wobbly and tenuous relationship with the facts and stories and whatnot, I think who Joe Biden picks as his running mate will be massive. If I were advising Joe Biden, I would tell him all that matters is the Midwest. The Big Ten has wanted to matter in college football for a long time, and other than Ohio State, they typically don't. But in this election coming up in 2020, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin will decide who wins this election. Donald Trump won the presidency by a grand total of 77,000 votes in those three states. That's less people than sit and watch a game in the Big House. That's less people who sit and watch a game at Camp Randall. That's less people who sit and watch a game in Beaver Stadium. Three Big Ten monumentally massive fan bases. And if I were advising Joe Biden, I would tell him not to worry about diversity, not to worry about inclusion. Find the best candidate in the Midwest who gives me the most possible to gain in those states. Is there a Pennsylvanian? Is there a Michigander? Is there an Ohioan? Is there a Wisconsinian? I don't know. What do you guys call yourselves? Amy Klobuchar's in Minnesota. That would take Minnesota off the board for Trump. But Sherrod Brown, could they get him to run as vice president out of Ohio and put Ohio in play? Maybe. That would be what I would advise Joe Biden to do. I think it's more likely Joe Biden goes with a minority, probably a black woman, maybe Kamala Harris, maybe Stacey Abrams, one of that identity politics laden era, and that will matter a great deal because I think there's a decent chance Joe Biden doesn't run for re-election at 82 years old or whatever the heck he would be if he won. I think this is a big win for Democrats. I think the reason why the odds market is adjusting as it is the odds makers have always recognized that Biden is a tougher matchup for Donald Trump than Bernie Sanders would be. And I know Bernie tried to sell the idea of, oh, look at the polls, people love me in the polls. No. Once people got to look at Bernie Sanders, they were going to run in the other direction from him. It's going to be fascinating in 2020, but I actually believe this is good for the country. Because if you had Donald Trump going up against Bernie Sanders, they are so far polar opposites from each other that I think it would have been an incredibly contentious and angry election in 2020 because of the difference between those two sides. I'll be honest with you. I really don't think that the world changes very much whether whether Joe Biden or Donald Trump is president in 2020. I know everybody out there is going to sell you on, it's going to be massively different depending on who the president of the United States is. If we get Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, I really don't think it'll be that much different. Joe Biden, very moderate guy. I don't think he'd be able to accomplish that much because we still have divided government. Depending on who wins the Senate would still matter a great deal. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's that monumentally massive of a difference. Whereas I think Trump versus Bernie, there is a massively monumental difference in terms of who wins the election. Now, people who are political are going to run around and tell you, oh my God, the world's going to end. But this has been my thing about all the anti-Trump people. They said, the world's going to end if Trump ends up president. What's happened? Things have been pretty fine. By and large, things have been pretty great. I know the coronavirus has ticked up of late, but stock market's up, unemployment's down. In general, everybody who sold you on doom and gloom and how it was going to be a disaster if Trump got elected has been proven wrong. And anybody out there who doesn't see that is not very smart. And so people get mad at me because I'm not hyper-partisan and I'm not the person who's running around saying, oh my God, the world's going to end. I'm going to be crying and rending my garments and falling down and tears going to be rolling down my cheeks. No. I don't think it'll be that substantial of a difference, and I actually think it's good for the country because I think it can take out some of the heat and some of the angst and some of the anger and antipathy that exists between the two sides, the dissension, the discord. I actually think it'll be good. But the big story tonight is, again, the Democrats pulled off an amazing wipeout of Bernie Sanders. They destroyed his presidential campaign in the space of a week. Joe Biden went from like 10-1 or 14-1 at some places to be the nominee to now basically being the prohibitive favorite to be the nominee against Donald Trump. It's really remarkable to see. The biggest question Democrats will have is how will the Bernie bros respond? But again, I wouldn't even worry about them because this election comes down to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Whatever happens in those 3 states will decide who the president is. I firmly believe that. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show, special edition reacting to Bernie Sanders getting wiped out by Joe Biden. Bernie bros, socialists, Fidel Castro lovers. Sayonara, bros. You guys are out. Congrats to the Democrats for making a smart decision. Trump versus Biden. It's going to be an interesting battle indeed. Kisses, DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. This has been a special edition Super Tuesday of Outkick the Show. See y'all. Thank you, Facebook. Big time discussion. Love you. Bye.